All right. So, our inorganic molecules do not contain carbon. Someone give me an example of one of our inorganic molecules.
Water.
Huh? Water.
Salt.
So our salts.
Base acids.
And our acids and bases that control our pH. Does anyone happen to remember what the normal pH is for us and dogs and cats?
7.35.
Very nice. Good range. 7.35 to 7.45. The average is 7.4. So we're just slightly off neutral. So now for our organic molecules, these do contain a carbon. We've got our carbs, our fats, our proteins, and our nucleic acids. And so we're just going to kind of do a handshake. How do you do? And don't forget, for when we finish this, in preparation for the test, I have posted on my website. I showed you all yesterday. It's entitled, it's all the way to the right, and it's called Testable Material. And it's where I've funneled down this information. I've highlighted the testable material, kind of give you a little bit more direction than just, you know, throwing a 70-slide PowerPoint and going.
So you pretty much give us a pre-study guide.
I'm giving you a study guide.
Okay.
Instead of just going, good luck.
Instead of saying,
Hope
figure it
you
out.
guess right what I'm going to test you over.
Gotcha.
You say it's testable more and stuff?
It's called Chapter 2 Testable Material. You're very welcome. All right, so the first thing are carbohydrates. And the reason why we're just going to kind of gloss over these organic molecules is because when we get into nutrition class next term, holy smokes, are we going to go into detail. So there's no real reason to do anything other than a howdy-do handshake right now.
We'll get to know you later.
We're going to be going into the molecular structure. How is it broken down? How does it interact with other nutrients in the body? What does it get converted into? How does it get converted? Nutrition is a whole big thing. Nutrition is a whole big thing. And I love every minute of it. So we have carbohydrates are sugars. So a single moleculed sugar, mono means one. If I have two sugars bonded together, tell me the word for two. Di or bi, but in this case we're using disaccharide. Saccharide is the word for sugar. If I have more than two, poly. So if tri would be if I had three, but poly just simply means more than two. Could be 3, could be 12.
Poly means many.
Poly means many, saccharide means sugars. And what our bodies have to do is break the bonds and separate them into single molecules. And I think we talked just a little bit yesterday, did kind of a dramatization as to what happens if you can't break the bond. We're comparing all of these nutrients, all of these molecules to Legos. If you have a Lego that's already built into something, can you build something else with it? No, of course not. We're going to separate them. So if I have 2 or more Legos bonded together and I can't break them apart, I can't use them, what happens to stuff I can't use? We got to get rid of it one way or another. And there's only 2 ways we can get rid of stuff from our GI tract. If it's still in the stomach, we can get rid of it this way. But if it's passed by the stomach, there's only one way to get rid of it. That's out the other way. So we have varying degrees of, wow, Doug, come on, get on the wheel, haste with which we are going to be getting rid of it. We can have our sugars binding with other substances like proteins, which would be a glycoprotein. We talked about, these are just terminology, anabolism, which is the term for
breaking down,
building up,
building up.
And then catabolism, breaking down.
Breaking down.
Remember your prefixes. We're going to be doing med term from today through the rest of your life. Ana is the term for up. Kata means down, under, or against. What?
She had a picture of a cat, and it was like a cat looks sad, so the cat is down. It's like Kata is the sad.
Here, so I did used to teach medical terminology, by the way. And I've got, you know, my pictures, PowerPoints, and you know I'm very, very visual.
Yeah.
When I had the word kata, the picture that I used was this cat eating a food bowl, and there was a kangaroo kind of standing there watching it eating with a very disgusted look on its face. Well, where do kangaroos come from?
Down and I love that.
Kangaroo is down under, kata, cat. That kangaroo is gonna fight him for the food, against. So down, under, against. There you go. See, now when you think kata, you're thinking about that little kangaroo gonna fight him for the food. Lipids are fats. Lipids do have a carbon backbone, hydrocarbon backbone, and they are categorized based on one of these four classes: neutral phospholipids, steroids, and eicosanoids. That's how you say that word, eicosanoids. We also categorize our fats by how many double bonds do we have in the molecule. These are some words that you may have heard before. If I have no double bonds, I am only got single bonds, those are known as saturated fats. If I have one double bond, it is an unsaturated. If I have more than one double bond, it is a polyunsaturated. So those are some words that you may have heard before. But these four classes, I'll give you a second, everyone's furiously writing. These four classes just basically determine what kind of fat and what is our body doing with it. What is our body doing with the fat? We know one thing that our body does with fat. Yeah, it does. Stores it. But the other thing that our bodies do with fat, holy smokes, there's a whole plethora of stuff. We have a membrane around all of our cells. And I kind of think of it like the skin of the cell. Our skin functions very similar to the skin of the cell. It's called a lipid. Eicosanoids. It's eicosanoids.
And say it, how is it pronounced?
Eicosanoid. It's a fun word to say. Eicosanoid. I really need to remember to change the color of that font. The minute I get out of here, it just goes bloop out of my head. So our neutral fats are known as triglycerides. These are three glycerol molecules bonded together. Here's where we have our saturated, unsaturated, polyunsaturated. You may have heard these terms, as I said, like you should stay away from saturated fats, that they're super not good for you. Well,
In moderation.
in moderation. The reason why saturated fats are deemed not good for you is because when we're breaking bonds, we're using energy. The more energy we use to simply break bonds, the less energy is left over to go to the storage unit. Well, that makes sense. Saturated fats have no double bonds. How much energy am I having to use to break apart a saturated fat? Not a lot. Single bonds are really nothing for my body to break apart, which means I'm getting a ton of energy, but I'm not expending any energy to get it, which leaves a whole lot left over to go to the storage unit. Just saying. The more double bonds you have, the more energy you use breaking them apart. This is going to be important, again, next term in nutrition, when we start talking about like weight loss diets, weight reduction diets. I want the animal to be using more energy than they're taking in, because then we're pulling stuff out of the storage unit. If I can use energy simply breaking apart molecules, it's like you're giving yourself a little internal workout. You're doing some push-ups with your gut. Lipoproteins, that's a fat and a protein bonded together, just like our glycoproteins. And then the way that we break apart our fatty acids is, remember, we are primarily water-based beings. Well, how well do fats and water mix? They don't. So holy smokes, how the heck is my body using fats if I'm made of mostly water? We're going to talk about that. But one of the ways that our body breaks it apart is by hydrolysis. And basically what that is lysis means to break down. And so it's kind of like when you're agitating that fatty chicken water, when you're trying to wash out the chicken pan that you cooked, or the turkey pan, turkey's coming up a couple of weeks, and you have to use agitation. That's kind of what our bodies do. They use agitation to break the fat molecules into smaller and smaller bits. That makes it much easier for our bodies to utilize. And that's pretty much the depth to which we're going to go with this. Neutral fats. Give you a minute. Yes, ma'am.
Because the more double bonds you have, the more energy you use.
Yes. So it's kind of like, okay, think about the double bonds and the single bonds, like a shoelace. A single bond is you've just tied it in a very loose bow. How much energy do you have to expend to untie the bow? Not a lot. If I have one double bond, I've tied it in a double bow, but I haven't really tightened it up. I got to use a little bit more energy. These polyunsaturated. Now I have it in a double bow, but I've yanked it super tight, and that's the kind that you got to sit and pick at it to get it loosened up. A lot of energy being used. So if you think of these bonds like tying a bow in your shoelace, that'll help you try and remember what we're talking about when we say we're using energy to break the bonds. Picture. Oh, Jana. I'm like the weatherman.
So what do we have on
Let's put the
saturated
map
today
in
in
the
the cup?
ocean.
Do what?
So what do we have on saturated today in the cup?
Right? Here I have all single bonds in the carbon backbone. Here I have one double bond, and then if I added another anywhere here, that would then be a polyunsaturated. So we're just classifying how many double bonds do I have. Phospholipids make up the skin of your cell. You have this really interesting construction that we're going to talk about in chapter 3. We have a hydrophilic, which means what? Water loving. And hydrophobic, afraid of water, repelling. And it's this hydrophilic and hydrophobic that regulates stuff going in and out of the cell. We don't want it to be a free-for-all. We don't want stuff to have free passage in and out of the cell. And so this kind of helps regulate what exactly gets in and out. Our hydrophilic heads face out. Hydrophobic tails face in. Let me give you a little trick to remember that in preparation for the next chapter. I'm stealing this, I think. Am I stealing this, Doug? Yeah, I totally am. There was one of the videos that I've uploaded for chapter 3 about Mr. Anderson's classroom or one of those. He compares the phospholipid membrane, and this is brilliant, to a herd of bison. What? This is crazy. Does everyone know what I mean by bison? When the bison get threatened, they form a circle, right? They form a circle. Who's inside the circle?
Children.
The babies, the children. So the heads of the bison, they are loving a fight. They are loving to try and defend their family. They're loving it. But what are the babies feeling? Terrified. they're phobic
I was in that
towards
circle.
the tails.
I'm in that circle. I'm secure as ever.
Do what?
I'm secure as ever in that circle.
Heck yeah. Well, but you know, it's frightening. They're babies. And for my analogy, they have to be frightened. So for my analogy, they have to be terrified. So the heads, if you now envision this as buffalo, the heads we now can remember, are they philic or phobic? Philic, looking for a fight. Babies at the tail end, right there. So that's how you can remember the heads are philic, the tails are phobic. You see why they have to be afraid now.
I got you. Yeah, hunting season for bison.
Do what?
Yeah, hunting season for bison.
A what for bison?
Hunting season, I think it's out.
Yeah, I don't think you can hunt bison anymore.
They're endangered species.
Yeah,
But they are.
you can't hunt buffalo. Buffalo and bison are two different things.
Yeah.
And buffalo is delicious.
What?
Buffalo is amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Is it tender?
If you
It's pretty
want,
exotic steak.
there's a little. No.
Can you taste the
So-
exotic in it?
If you eat buffalo, you will never be able to go back to ground beef again, ever. No, I'm not kidding. Here's my tip for you guys, VTI tip. If you go out here, go up to West Park, right? West Park is just that street one over. Turn right on West Park and go under the 610 highway.
Yeah.
If you look to your right before the West Park toll road, there is what looks to be a shack that's going to fall down at any moment.
The little white and blue one.
It is called Bubba's.
Yeah.
And they sell some of the best buffalo burgers in the entire city.
I already tried it.
And when you'll be ruined for hamburgers for the rest of your life.
And I live just right there.
Ruined. So Bubba's just over here, best, and this is not just me saying it, it's documented, best buffalo burgers in the city. I don't know, I mean, you get a lot of money, or not a lot of money, you get a lot of food. I think their burgers are like $5-6. So it's a heck of a lot more than McDonald's, but guess what?
But
Well, I meant like
beef,
something
beef.
like over $10.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah.
Uh-uh. So you try and then you can thank me later.
Do we do the steroids?
Perfect. I'm gonna be hungry by the time like all this.
Did we skip one?
I think it's forward. Yeah, he already changed it.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. All right, so the third category are our steroids. Some are examples, cholesterol. We already talked about cortisol, which is your stress hormone.
I use that word.
Cortisol, you're splooshing with cortisol.
I was like the amount that my body produces.
You know, now that I'm starting to realize that a lot of these mental issues can actually be fixed with just them realizing what it is and how they can do it on their own. It's not really so much
Absolutely.
chemicalization, it's just not
And in
being
fact,
educated.
I'm
The
trying.
case study that I was just telling you about that I spent an insane amount of time on last night, your adrenal glands produce steroids.
Oh.
Your adrenal glands produce cortisol and adrenaline and norepinephrine. And it was in my case study, we did what's called a cortisol suppression test, or a dexamethasone steroid suppression test. And basically what you do is you take your patient and you just inject them with a crap ton of steroids. What should happen is your adrenal glands go, look at all this steroids around me right now. I don't have to work, I don't have to produce anymore because it's all right here. And what should happen in the healthy patient is that the adrenal glands stop producing. And then the steroid that you've given wears away, the levels will go down, and you know that the adrenal glands are functioning properly. In my patient, gave him a crap ton of steroids and my adrenal glands never stopped producing because the tumor was causing them to sploosh out steroids. So that's, you guys have now just learned the basic concept. I'm gonna throw some $10 words out there. Are you ready? For hyperadrenal corticism. Bam! Aries, say it. An overproduction of cortisol by the adrenal glands. Huzzah. And that's exactly what's happening. The tumor is just causing them to constantly sploosh. Eicosanoid, these are going to be like some of our hormones. I'm not going to test you over these words. It's just so you've heard them before. Prostaglandins, thromboxane, this is important for platelets. Spider-Man cells. Leukotrienes help with our lung function, bronchial function. So yeah, I'm not going to test you over the definitions of those words. Again, it's just so you've heard them before. All right, moving on to our proteins. Proteins are the most abundant Lego in your body. The majority of your structures are made of amino acids, and amino acids are the Legos that make up proteins. So when you eat that buffalo burger and you break apart the Legos, there is nearly an infinite number of things that you can then do with those Legos in your body. They can create DNA, they can create RNA, they can create ribosomes, they can create muscle. There's just a ton of stuff that these amino acids can do. Our proteins are made up chiefly of our 4 major elements. Nitrogen is a major element in protein. In fact, the typical proteins that we take in nutritionally are about 16% nitrogen. That comes in very important because any excess nitrogen that we take in has to be filtered by the kidneys. So if you have an animal who is in kidney failure, what am I going to want to minimize the consumption of? Nitrogen. Because I don't want the kidneys to have to work any harder than they already are. That's it.
How can you like minimize?
You can minimize it by changing the type of protein, regulating the type of amino acids, just basically changing dietary. The big issue is, though, that the majority of our kidney cases are cats. Cats are obligate carnivores, meaning what? They have to eat meat. There is no option. So how do you minimize meat consumption in an animal that has to eat meat? I know, there's your tickle for next term. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to deal with kidney disease in our cats. Okay, don't panic. Do not write all these down. No. Do not furiously start writing all these down. This is the list of Legos. Every one of these words is a different Lego. Each of these Legos has an individual shape, size, and color, and that determines what your body can build with it. We will be going through this list in nutrition next term. So you do not have to do anything with this list right now. Just know that each one of these is a Lego. And each one of these makes up the protein that we take in nutritionally. And it is the composition of these Legos that lets you know, do we have a high quality versus a low quality meat? McDonald's hamburger, not made up of a whole lot of different Legos. And the Legos that it is made up of are super hard to break apart. Until finally your body just gives up and goes, yeah, I can't break these apart. Get rid of them.
Is that why I did the little test to see how long my McDonald's burgers last?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah,
So that's what
preservatives. It's like
That's because of the preservatives.
and it lasts.
They
Just
do.
from
It's
that.
disgusting.
That's
Right.
not supposed to.
If I have a lovely filet mignon,
Ooh,
oh,
I mean,
filet
Expensive
mignon, medium rare, wrapped in bacon with a nice garlic butter reduction.
so considerate.
Oh. I'm torturing all of you right now.
We got one more class.
The higher the quality of the meat, the greater the diversity in the Legos that make it up. and the easier it is for our body to break apart. That's the difference between that filet and the McDonald's hamburger. Even though they theoretically came from the same cow, that's why our bodies are able to use them very differently.
So in other words, McDonald's is more processed.
Not necessarily processed, just for what we're dealing with right now, it does not have a very big diversity in the number of Legos that it has. The less Legos that we use, or the less Legos that we have available to use, and the harder to pull them apart, well, that's a very low quality protein because there's not a whole lot that my body can use.
So the more stuff you got, it's the more your body can use so much different stuff.
Absolutely. If I have a filet mignon that has a whole bunch of different Legos, a whole bunch of different colors, and a whole bunch of different sizes, I can make a ton of stuff out of that. But a McDonald's hamburger, I'm just going to pick one. I'm just picking one at random. Methionine. Let's say that that's the only amino acid. Well, how much stuff can I make out of that?
Got you.
So that's what we're talking about when we say protein quality. We have some structures to our proteins, and I compare this structure to origami. Does everybody know what I mean by origami? Now, paper folding. So first we start off with a primary structure. That is our piece of paper. Okay, we've got our base. Then we take that paper and we start folding it into the major folds. That's our secondary structure. Then we start doing the little fine-tuning folds. That's our tertiary structure. And then if we join that origami with another, that's known as quaternary. So without using, because I know sometimes my analogies don't work for everyone, your primary structure is when your amino acids click and link together, forming a chain. Or a secondary, that chain starts to fold in on itself. Tertiary, it now completes the overall shape of that individual protein. Quaternary, I get 2 or more proteins joining together. Does that make sense to everybody? I've got a picture coming up that will help show you. Excuse me, I have to get naked for a minute. It feels so weird to take it down.
You've already become accustomed to it.
Allergies are crazy right now. I'll give you guys a minute, still furiously writing. Ugh. I know, right? My brain is just going a million miles an hour, and I don't know why. Doug is a little bloody stumps right now. His little feet are just the word. Are you guys still doing anatomy in medical terminology?
Yeah.
You're doing internal anatomy now?
We have a test on internal and external tumor.
Oh, geez. Give me a medical term for ear. Yeah, oto or auto. How about nose?
Rhino.
Nasorhino. Very nice. Eyes.
Opto.
Ophtho.
There's that one.
Ophthalmo. Oculo. I always think Oculus, if you ever watched that movie. I never did because mirrors kind of terrify me. Are you the same, Aries? Yeah, I'm terrified of mirrors.
I just need
Yeah, I'm
binoculars.
terrified of the mirrors facing each other.
I'm always afraid that they're going to do something that I'm not doing. I'm always so, like when I say I'm terrified, okay, no, I'm not like, ah! But like your mind kind of gets away from you, and here's my fear. My fear is that I'm looking in the mirror in the morning and I'm brushing my teeth and I'm putting on my eyeshadow, kind of trying to get this frizz under control. And suddenly my reflection starts doing stuff that I'm not doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or you catch something like behind you that you don't think's really there, but it might be there.
Oh, well, I didn't before, but thanks for that new fear.
I do that all the time.
My big thing is that I'll be, brushing my teeth and suddenly my reflection is, messing with their hair or doing
You're
something
afraid
and
it's
I'm
actually
like,
gonna be another person doing it.
oh, well, thanks again for that terrifying.
I'm scared of mirrors in public places because I feel like someone's watching me. I always do that little gap test.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always do that
You know what,
little
you guys, the two of you are on my list now. Because I thought I had enough to be afraid of with the reflection doing something else. Now I gotta worry about their mouth. Now I have this you put this visual where the mouth just starts smiling, but it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it's like this big open maw. I didn't like that at all. That terrified us until we became English.
A lady came to look at some poodles at our rescue, and she was from there, and I just had to shut my mouth because I was gonna start.
no.
It was gonna start.
All right, so for you little visual learners, here's my picture for you. We start out with our amino acid chain. That's our primary structure. For those of you that are okay with the analogy, this is getting our piece of paper. Secondary, we start doing some of the primary folds. Okay, that's our secondary structure. Tertiary, we do the finer and finer folds in on itself until it finally becomes its final, I'm saying the word final a lot, its final form. And then our quaternary, I have two final forms that join together. So all we're talking about here is the formation of this molecule. It's got to have its major folds, minor folds, and then join together with somebody else.
That's what I got, main fold shape joint.
Perfect.
Oh.
Perfect.
That's how I wrote it down, main fold shape joint.
Yep. Perfect. That's exactly right. Link. We have structural proteins. These have some specialized additions like keratin, your hair, claws. Collagen is a specialized protein. What does collagen do? It gives you the elastic in your skin. And unfortunately, as you grow older, although you're all fetuses, so you don't have to worry about this quite yet. But gravity works, and gravity is pulling on your skin at all times.
Gravity's cruel most to women.
Cruel, Lord, is it? And what happens is that collagen starts to get loose from the constant pull. And that's when you start getting the loose skin. You start getting that loose skin. And then actin and myosin we'll talk about with muscle function. They're two protein filaments that interact like this and cause a muscle to contract towards the middle. So those are just a handshake, how do you do for our structural proteins. And if you've watched the videos, I think it's on the crash course that he goes into some detail on these structural proteins.
He goes into detail on everything.
I know, he's but slow it down to like half speed and it's much easier to understand. It sounds weird, but yeah, slow him down to half speed and it will be much easier.
Do the little fill in the blank worksheets from the crash course history videos in high school, and I would literally be like, I can't.
I had to watch it like 3 times.
Did I just have a teacher?
My teacher introduced
Just
face stretch.
What? That's what crazy.
Ew. I don't even know what that means. I mean, I know facelift where they like literally
Yeah, but how
pull skin out and then when they join it back up, it tightens everything up. I don't know about that's just weird. That's just weird. Our functional proteins, these include our hormones, which we've talked about. Hormones make changes within your body and they regulate pretty much everything about you. Antibodies are part of your immune system. So when you get a disease, unfortunately, I'm not going to actually put that out into the universe. When you get huff and puff disease, I'm making one up, and you contract it and your immunity Groot is looking at the war that is being waged, and he's writing down the instructions, what is working, what is not. What did this foreign invader look like? How can we identify him again? And then he gives that little wanted poster to these little specialized cells, antibodies, and basically they just go around and they look for stranger danger. They're looking for this one guy on this one wanted poster, and if they find him, if you get infected with huff and puff disease again, they call stranger danger. They tell immunity group exactly what's going on. Immunity group pulls his little recipe card and knows exactly what to do to get rid of the huff and puff disease. That's an antibody. We've got protein-based hormones and enzymes. Enzymes are a catalyst which initiate some sort of reaction within your body. So those are our functional proteins. They're called functional because they make changes within your body. What's the word for tongue? Glosso or lingual. What's the word for jaw? Nice, Matho. What is the word for your upper jaw? Maxilla? Mandible? You didn't do that one. Teeth. There's a lot of them for teeth. Dentidonto. Yeah, odonto. So you have orthodontics. What has happened to you if you've gone to an orthodontist? Braces. Ortho, it changes the direction, but ortho is the medical term for what?
Correction.
Straight. Don't. The ick.
The person.
Person or pertaining to. So orthodontic is pertaining to straight teeth.
Yeah.
I know. It's a medical term for hair.
Really?
Yeah, pilo. Pilo. Medical term for rib. Costo. I remember that because there is a big box grocery store that you could get a whole big rack of ribs. Costco. That's how I remember. I can go buy me a big old rack of ribs at Costco. So the medical term for ribs is Costo.
And pilo is hair, right? Like a
Pilo
big
is
pile of
hair.
hair.
Pilo is just,
Pilo, like big pile of hair.
yep. But P-I-L-O.
Mhm.
Because P-Y,
Right, but.
because pilo, and that's why spelling is so important in medical terminology. Because I've got pilo means hair, P-I-L-O.
Right.
And I've got pyelo, P-Y-E-L-O, kidneys. You've got ileum with an E, is your intestines. Ileum with an I is your sassy bone. It's your hip bones. Call it the sassy bone.
You move it so well.
All right, so we also have some enzymes. These are basically just going to speed up reactions within your body. Sometimes our reactions need a little bit of help, and these enzymes are simply going to get the cart rolling, get the job going and speed it up. Apparently there's a cat sitting on someone's head. I don't know, I don't have your video up, you guys. I've only got the chat up. So be aware that everything you're typing, everyone here is reading. Just saying. So really, enzymes, all the pertinent information you need to know. They are substances that help to speed up chemical reactions. That's pretty much it. And they end usually in ASE, like amylase, lipase. Those are two digestive enzymes that help speed up the breakdown of fats and proteins. So picture. So here you have your little protein, and we have our little our little enzyme, and this is like a lock and key. One enzyme will speed up or begin the job of one type of protein. Kind of like my key. I got a lot of cars out in the parking lot. If they all represent proteins, but this is the enzyme for the one protein. I can try and put this key in all of those proteins out there, but is it gonna start up a reaction? Lock and key. This enzyme only starts that protein. Thank you.
I'm starting thinking about that now.
So nucleic acids, these are the last of our proteins. These are what make up your DNA. DNA is the blueprint that makes you you. It is the instruction manual for everything that goes on in your body. It is the instruction manual that you pass on in part to your progeny or your children. It is also containing the recipes, the how-to, the instructions, literally for everything. You need, your body goes, hey, we're getting a little low on this one type of protein. DNA goes on it, thumbs through the manual, makes a copy of the page, takes it to his little transport guy, which is RNA, hands it to RNA, which is the runner, and RNA runs it out, and he hands it to the factory worker. Factory worker, bippity boppity boo, makes the protein. Bob's your uncle, you got more protein. It's just that simple. Everyone thinks anatomy is so difficult. It's just that simple. That's what happens. When we're talking about transport RNA, ribosomal RNA, we're throwing all these words out. All he is a runner, and he's taking it to the factory. So RNA transfers the instructions. I just like see you like this little, I'm on it, boss! And off he goes. We've got messenger RNA, which takes the message out of the nucleus. We've got our tRNA, which is transcribed. He's copying down notes. And we have our ribosomal RNA where he's handed it to the factory worker, which is ribosomes. So that's our DNA and RNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid. This is where radiation is super dangerous. Taking a class in radiology. That was my project last night I was working on. Still the test I gotta do in that class. Golly. I'm a little nervous. I got 2 tests and a PowerPoint that I still have to do this week. Anyway. Yeah, I have to do research PowerPoint on dermatological disease of my choice. So I think I'm gonna do pyoderma. Yeah, derma. Skin. Pyo, P-Y-O. Pus. It is a pyogenic infection of the skin, or a pus-forming infection. So, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. I might end up doing my final project on pyoderma, so I can't do it for this project. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. But radiation, here's why it's so dangerous. So we have this perfect, you all can see the double helix, right? And that is the blueprint that makes you, you. What radiation does is it comes in, so everybody, you can see right here. Imagine this double helix right here, and I'm now radiation, and I'm like, and I just start unplugging.
Scrambles it up.
I just scramble it up. But now this scrambled DNA is the DNA that gets replicated. And it's the DNA that you pass on to who?
Your offspring.
Your offspring. That's the danger of radiation.
Okay.
Oh,
I say long term.
that's why radiation can cause cancer. Oh, that's all cancer is a cell that's decided he doesn't want to act like what he's supposed to be. Like, let's say liver cancer. You got all these little liver cells. They've got the blueprint. They're very good at following the rules. They are all acting as liver cells. Radiation sneaks in and starts, and basically what he's done is he goes into the liver and he says, hey, you guys, did you know that you don't have to be a liver cell? And the liver cells are like, I didn't even know that was an option. Screw you, Mom and Dad, I don't want to be in the family business. And he stops acting like a liver cell. And then others are like, I didn't know that was an option, and they stop acting like a liver cell. Well, what happens to your liver function if none of your liver cells are functioning as liver cells?
Go pay here.
It fails. Cancer. Bam.
That's how boom.
That's how all cancers are. It's just a rogue cell
Yeah.
that's decided not to do what he's supposed to do.
Rebels.
He's a rebel rogue cell. Yes.
Made sense.
Nucleotides are the proteins that make up our DNA. So our sugar DNA is deoxyribose. Sugar RNA is ribose. We'll talk about these nucleotides. We've got adenine, thymine, cysteine, and guanine. So we'll talk about, like, there's 4. I find that really fascinating, is that everything about you, from the way you look, to the way you act, to the way that your body functions, literally everything about you comes down to how 4 proteins are ordered. What order are they in? That's it, 4. DNA is made of 4 proteins. That's it. Okay, that was not an appropriate amount of astonishment. You get it.
Yeah.
You got it. That's crazy. I have 4 Legos, and not only that, only 2 combine together, and another 2 bind together. I only have 2 binding that form patterns, and those patterns are what make us us.
Is that why we only have 2 polars?
Adenine and thymine they can only bind together. Cysteine and guanine only bind together. I know. You guys are just not enthusiastic. Don't make me get my spork. I will get my spork. My titanium spork, and I will spork you in the throat.
I've never been threatened with a spork.
You've now been threatened with a spork on camera. Because I just remembered I'm recording this. Darn it.
For legal reasons.
Now you guys go, Mr. Hamilton! Please ask Miss Huff to stop threatening us with her spork.
For legal reasons.
This is just a picture. This is a representation of what makes you you. The sugar molecule that makes you up. See, we are sweet as sugar. Because we're made of sugar. Like literally made of sugar. I know!
Crazy.
There's the nucleotide. Look at that. I even knew what they were. Adenine and guanine, cytosine and thymine. These are the 4 that make up RNA. Adenine and thymine are the 2 that bind together. Cytosine and guanine. And here's how I remember this. Are you ready?
Yes.
Apple tree, put your car in the garage.
Apple tree, put your car in the garage.
So the A and T go together,
Yep.
and car and the garage go together. The
Yep.
C and the G go together.
Yes. Apple tree, adenine and thymine are the 2 that bind together. Car in the garage,
Nice.
cytosine and guanine. In uracil, this is only found in RNA. So the thymine actually converts into this. That's a talk for a different one, for a different day. Right now we're just getting used to learning their names. So yeah, that's how I remember it. Apple tree, put your car in the garage for the DNA. Give you guys a second. These are my note takers in here. I love it.
Why didn't you say apple tree or the garage?
All right. So so right here,
I know you're trying to remember it, but
no, it's fine, it's fine. I have 4 Legos right here, right? Only 2 of these Legos can join together,
okay.
and the other 2 Legos can only join together. How do we remember who joins with who? Apple tree, adenine and thymine are the 2 Legos that join together always. Cytosine and guanine, car in the garage. Those are the other 2 that only join together. So if I asked you on the test, not on this test obviously, but the next one, which of the following nucleotides binds with thymine? You would say adenine because you remember apple tree. And now look at this. This is crazy, guys. Let me see if this works. Close enough. I'm gonna make a strand of RNA. Look how far you've come. I'm gonna make a strand of RNA.
Yes.
That's only half of the strand though, isn't it? How do I make the other half?
A,
We'll go with the T, the car, the G, the C, the A, T, C.
Yeah.
Look at us.
You just created DNA, guys. Apple tree, put your car in the garage. I can now give you any sequence of RNA, and you can create the missing half to make DNA.
Yeah.
You are being scientists. You are being scientists. So how this forms, and we're going to get into this again in a little bit, we have what are called chromosomes. You've all heard that term before. Chromosomes are just very, very long chains of this DNA, these genes, that combine together to make proteins that make up you. That's what makes you. It's chromosomes. You got some of your chromosomes from your dad. You got some of your chromosomes from your mom. They got some of theirs from their mom and dad. And that's how you do get traits passed on. I find this genetics very, very interesting. So every time a baby is conceived, they are a stew. They are a beef stew of genetic material that's been donated from every single person in the history of that lineage. Hundreds, if not thousands of years worth of DNA that has been scrambled and donated, scrambled and donated, scrambled and donated. And that's why you might have, a child, as a child's growing up, you're like, oh my God, they're the spitting image of my great-great-grandmother. And you put the old timey, photo and the new photo, and there's like, you can't tell which is which. Mm-hmm. That's because of the way that the sequence lined up for that one particular person. Some of you may have I have, my mom has brown eyes, but I have my dad's shape. My mom has thinner eyes than I do. So I've got my dad's kind of pug, kind of bug eyes. But the color, this very dark brown, is from my mom. My 2 sisters got his color, which I'm super jealous about. He has steel gray blue eyes. Oh my goodness, they're piercing with a black moon. All 3 of us have the black moon around the color. And so they have these steel gray blue eyes with a very dark black ring around the color. I know. We got stuck with the brown. Actually, I don't mind them because sometimes they will kind of not change color, but they'll change shade. And sometimes if I'm not feeling well or if I'm kind of dark and like, meh, They'll go so dark, it looks like I have those blackout contacts in, which is freaks out my SO.
You can see that in the mirror.
No, oh, shut up! Get ready. I throw stuff at you. Woo.
She's about to go get scored.
We're all looking the other way.
We didn't see a single
Turn
thing.
that all
What do you
around.
think about it? What just happened?
Oh my God. You guys have given me so many more things to be terrified of now.
See, but that's the thing, your eyes and your mind play tricks on you, so you could be telling your mind you're not seeing it, but your eyes might be thinking they're seeing it.
Oh, I know. I'm terrified of this now. Oh. Golly.
Right?
DNA is 2 strands. I'm not telling you any shocking information. The DNA forms a double helix, and that's just the way that the proteins, the nucleotides line up. And we now know apple tree, car in the garage. This is how we, this is how we do. And it's the order that these line up that gives you your genetic code. The interesting thing, I know in behavior class, you guys are studying your dog breeds.
Yes.
There's no other species on the planet that has the same diversity as our dogs. From a Chihuahua to a Whippet to a Mastiff to an Irish Wolfhound. It's 0.1% of their DNA, and I can go into that DNA and I go burp, 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 and I just start moving this around a little bit. 0.1% is what gives the Chihuahua this small size, gives the pug the brachiocephalic, gives the Irish Wolfhound the dolichocephalic.
Is that the same with like the hair and stuff too?
The hair, everything, and I can take, that's how all of these purebreds have been created. So for example, here's an interesting one, a Newfoundland. Does everyone know what a Newfoundland looks like? Big, black, shaggy, hairy dog, used for water rescue. They're specifically genetically engineered where I'm like, okay, here's a little DNA that's gonna give him webbed feet. We'll go ahead and put that in there. Here's a little bit of DNA that's gonna make him genetically love water. Here's a little bit of DNA I'm gonna plop in here that gives him that waterproof coat. And here I'm gonna give him a double coat. That's what I've done. But then what happened was with the search and rescue water rescues, the dog is black. The water is dark. Can't see him. So what they did was they were like, okay, okay, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go ahead and grab this from the Great Pyrenees. Plug that in, and now we have a black and white Newfoundland called a Landseer, because you can see them from land.
I don't know.
I know! I get excited.
Like some of these words are so smart, they're so good.
There's the structure, and if we have only half, we can very easily create the other half. Finally, we got our RNA. RNA, tree.
My neck is sore.
Tree is substituted with uracil. So in RNA, instead of adenine and thymine,
Don't fall off.
adenine and uracil. I remember this is YouTube.
Keep going last night.
T,
When we were having sex, I
remember
kept
that
saying
it's
that
the,
a lot, and you
the
kept on keep
thiamine.
going. And I ended up just letting you keep going. So I was like, I'm gonna make it work so I can speak with that first.
It's the thiamine, U2, the thiamine is replaced by the uracil.
She's gonna support you.
Sorry, I had to mute because I'm finishing up this one slide and somebody unmuted themselves and I was hearing a discussion. All right, time flies and we are having fun, you guys.